Welcome to Negotiation with Alice, your negotiation podcast. Everything that you do where you need to get on the same page with someone else is a negotiation. So whether you have to negotiate a contract with someone, or you simply need your boss to sign off on that program that you'd like to implement, or you want to figure out how to rebalance the chore structure in your home, or talk about what vacation you want to go on. All of these things are negotiations. So in my podcast, we go over both personal and professional conversations, which all are considered negotiation, and I will give you tips on how to come out ahead. Welcome to the show. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Negotiation with Alice. Today I've got Katie Kim from Austin, Texas. Welcome, Katie.
Thanks. Hello, Alice.
So I would love for Katie to introduce yourself to my listeners, let them know how you would help people, like if you got in front of them.
Yeah, so I used to say, I make dreams come true because figure out how to do like what you do. How do you negotiate and get those terms and concepts in? And I really started to hone into, I help women business owners that are looking to grow or scale their business, add real estate into the mix to build wealth without taking on the debt and be able to grow without having that barrier over their head. So really intense negotiation to make sure that they can expand 3 times for 1.5 times the cost.
That is so interesting, and I'm super excited about how we're going to dig into your wealth of knowledge, Katie. So thanks for being here. So today, Katie's going to be our resident expert on negotiations because Katie negotiates something very unique. Katie, you want to explain to everyone sort of like where your interests lie right now when it comes to negotiating?
Yes. So I love negotiating free land, and I love negotiating people to, and that's right. If somebody's like, wait a second, what? They're driving. Negotiating free land, and then the incentives to go with the development of it. So again, if we go back to that, expand for 3 times the space or 1.5 times the cost, that's exactly that sweet spot, because there are so many communities that want development and they have all these tools, but the people managing those tools or managing the city don't know how to put them into play. And so I love working with business owners and or people that want to do development and figuring out how we can go into those deals at no money or low money and then get incentives so we're actually building and developing without all the debt load of the full project on their head.
Okay, so let's start from step 1 here. So in terms of finding the free land, I understand that you help them, but if people can people do this on their own, go and find it, or do they need to work with someone like yourself in order to find it? And if they are going to go on their own, how does one find free land?
Yeah, so it's really easy to find it. It's then harder to put the deal and the capital stack together and tell the story. So the easy part is a lot of times people have a GIS or some kind of mapping geography system in their county or their city. You can go on that and you can do a quick ownership search to see what land the city owns. And a lot of times you're going to have it'll highlight the parcels for the civic center, city hall, but then you're going to start to see these little red highlight areas all the way throughout the city. And those are properties that they've either received in foreclosure for property taxes, maybe some demolition disorder, and then they condemned it, and so now they own it. And those are the properties that they're holding. And then there's a couple different layers of other opportunities, but to keep it simple for our purposes here, that is the quickest, easiest way to find the properties. And then it's, what does the city want to do with it, and building those relationships as we're all strong on networking and building our network. What does the city want to do with it? And if the city's coming back and says, I don't know, we just have it, it's this one-off parcel or this one-off house, they will negotiate with you. A lot of times you can get those properties for $1 and then you develop it. And because if you follow the money, I always say follow the money in any deal, right? That's probably I'm sure that's a step in the negotiation framework, right? Is is looking at cities and counties and EDCs for the most part. EDCs are a little bit unique. So let's go with cities and counties. Usually get their revenue to run their operations from property tax and sales tax. So the more property tax they can create, the more money they can have to operate and run their city. So it does not serve the city to own property because they don't pay any property taxes on it. So unless they're doing land banking, which sometimes they do, they'll land bank for bigger opportunities for companies to come in. They want to get rid of these one-off properties. And it may be as easy as a house that, they just got, or somebody donated it, or, there's all these different ways that, people get property, or municipalities get property. One example was there was 2 houses that were condemned, and I was actually at one of the council meetings for another project, and this contractor who was just doing fix and flips on the side came and gave the city like $10,000 for them, and that was their demo cost. And so he got these properties that are in an emerging area right on the outskirts for $10,000 that would have on market probably cost him about $120,000. So now you're buying that equity, and then he's going to build a house and rent it out anyway. So now his land costs are extremely low for what it would be at a market rate price.
That's fascinating. So basically, as a recap, if the city owns land, it's not generating any money because they're not going to charge themselves property tax. So it makes them more money to sell the land to you for cheap so that you can start paying them the property tax and they'll start to generate income again. Is that sort of like the basic of it?
Correct. And it may be costing them more, right? They may have to mow the lawn. They may have to like do some kind of upkeep with it. So it might not just be not making them money. It might be costing them more money.
Got it. Now let's talk about what are the pieces that you can negotiate? Like what are all the levers that you can pull and that sort of thing to get this deal?
Yeah. Well, as you know, you can negotiate anything, right? You can always ask, no asking, no getting. And so when you're looking at buying the property, especially like that type of deal, I would have gone into it a little different. I would say, hey, I would like you to abate my property taxes for 2-3 years so I can build the building, get a tenant in there, start getting cash flow going. And then that can be put into a redevelopment agreement. And so you could either say, well, I want to abate it for 2 years, 3 years. Each municipality is different. And even then go to 50% for a year and then step up. In the enterprise zone, that is already baked into that area. So if you're looking at these properties and then you layer on some incentive districts and zones, you may be able to start pulling those levers on your project and, kind of like have another scoop of ice cream with a cherry on top, if you will, like in that development, because those give you a lot more levers to pull. And then the second thing you step into is not necessarily like your burn rate and your loaded cost as the property taxes would do, but then step into what is my overall cost structure on this, right? And what am I creating? Am I creating something that gives sales tax? Like there's a lot of levers that you can pull in there. And that's when it starts to get a little bit more complex, but it also is more fun if you have a business. So if your business is leveling up and growing, and you may say, I want to grow my business. I work with a lot of female business owners that have worked really hard to keep their business 100% them. No outside investors, no shareholders. And when they look to grow to that next level, they're like, I want to own the building, right? I want to own the ground that I have built my business on. And so what we do is we look at their growth plan and their growth trajectory. And then we start to tell a story with their numbers. That's a big lever to pull. And then look at how do we bring investors maybe into the real estate side or incentives into there based off of what the business is doing. And that's where we help on a consulting basis with a lot of female business owners, give that 10x of incentives into their deal and allow them to expand 10x, 3x for only half the cost.
So it sounds
less
like
cost.
Right. So it sounds like then a lot of the pieces of the negotiation are like this long-term thing that says like in 2 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, like when we do, like you're talking about the story, right? The story of the growth of the business and the story of expanding perhaps to a commercial space, and then you get to rent it out to other businesses and that sort of thing. So Is that sort of when you say we're telling the story, it's the story of all the different pieces that you negotiate over 10x amount of time
Mhm.
to increase revenue for not just the business owner, but also for the city or the county.
Correct. Yeah, and it goes back to follow that money. And so if you're going to give them some money, so say you are a business owner that produces a product that has sales tax. Well, that city wants the sales tax over the other adjacent city that wants the sales tax, right? So what are they going to come to the table for? And a lot of times we see those stories in the newspaper, like ABC company coming to town, they got 10 million in incentives. Well, this is kind of what we're talking about. We're breaking down the story and the numbers to really help that business grow. Because if I'm a business owner and I'm going to expand and say my new building is going to be $10 million, but now you're going to give me 10 million in incentives that I'm going to pay to you anyway over the next 10, 20 years, but you're going to give it to me up front. I'm going to look at your community. I'm going to say, yep, I want my building for free, right? I want my building. I mean, I'm paying for it over time, but that's where we start to look at the story and what levers can these economic incentives pull and enhance our small business owners as they step into those developments. And there's also opportunity on the residential side too. Like when we've done some residential urban infill neighborhoods, we pull those leverage with those incentives too. So it doesn't have to just be a business that produces sales tax. It could be a business, it could be residential. It's anything that you're increasing the value and then you follow the money.
Interesting, Katie. I love this conversation. I'm like, wow, this is so, I love it. And so talk to me a little bit. Well, it sounds, first of all, that like you can calculate not just like once you purchase the land or you get the free land, then
Yeah.
you also calculate what are my costs to invest. And
Yeah.
then what I'm hearing you say is that you can still negotiate your own costs with the city, because you can go in as partners to say, hey, you put up this much and over time I'll pay back this much, so that an entrepreneur is not necessarily dumping in 10 million to build a commercial building. Is that right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you hit something so great there where you say partner with and say, you know, kind of, I look at it as a but for statement, like, but for us, you giving this money, we can't do this project because the numbers don't work. Right. And then you go into that if then else. So if I can get this much money for or incentives, then I can do this, else I have to do this type of a project. And when you talk about, you know, negotiating with the city, there's a lot of things you can ask for that they are permitted to do. So, you know, enhancing streets and infrastructure, maybe street lights. And so those different types of opportunities, those are things, especially if you're doing a subdivision, right? You're going to increase, you're taking a field and you're making a subdivision in there, you're going to increase that property tax. So what are you asking for your effort to do that? Right. And that's something where you can have those dialogues with the city and or county and say, how can we work as a partnership? Right. You need housing. Maybe you need us to focus on 3-bedroom, 2-bath housing. We were going to do 3-bedroom, you know, 3-bath or something like, I'm just throwing numbers out, like 5-bedroom, 3-bath, but we'll add so many of these types of houses in there at a market rate if you give us this incentive, because that's when the numbers start to make sense.
And who typically in the city, who are the people that you're negotiating with regularly?
Yeah, it really depends on how your city's set up in terms of a size. So the, you know, the economic development lead is the best one to start with. Now, don't expect to go there and have them teach you how to use these programs. They're going to tell you about the programs. They're not going to teach you how to use them, nor are they going to teach you how to tell the story. They're going to receive what you give them, process it with the program, and see if it's a good yay or nay. So what we do is we come in on that side, we tell the whole story, we look at all the incentives and opportunities we can get for our clients, and we package that up, and then either they go, we go as a team on behalf to have that story and tell that to the economic development. If you don't have an economic development council or department, then you would probably start with your assistant city manager. That's usually the best person to start if you don't have that role in there.
Interesting. And then I know that you're down in Austin. Do you work with people all over the country or?
Yep.
Yeah?
Yeah, so we're actually we have a couple projects in we have one project in Reno, Nevada. We're actually helping the first woman business owned distillery in Nevada expand to into a ranch development where her business is going to pretty much 10x in the next year and a half, 2 years. And how do we do that without putting all the debt on the business, as well as how do you bring investors into the deal and then provide a way to get them out, so she owns everything at the end of the day. And then we're doing an assisted living, dementia, and memory care in Minnesota. We're helping with that. And then we have a couple on the East Coast, can't really fully bake yet, but it's about a co-generational, so multi-generational co-living campus and with services. So that's really fun because it's looking at the whole community of what's needed and figuring out how we rising tide lift all boats.
That's great. Now, I heard a few things that I heard over the course of our conversation is that you love to help, women entrepreneurs, 10x their money, that sort of thing. So my question to you is, if someone is interested in that, do they need to be, like, for example, the distillery? Does it need to be someone who is in that field, or can you just be doing, like, I'm a mediator, right? Can it just be like, oh, I'm a mediator, I'm just going to go and get land and I'm going to do this totally other random business? Or would you recommend that people look to build a business that is in alignment with the work that they're currently doing? Like, how does that work for?
Great. Yeah, great question, Alice. So we've worked with a lot of people, mediaries, or people that want to get into real estate investing and developing, and we help coach them and actually help build their development company for them with them. So we definitely do that. And those are the ones that normally will come and seek us out. So it's an easier, description of what we do for them. But what we find out a lot of times is that they don't want to sit in the process. They want that quick answer, quick go, quick, like solution. I call it the drive-by solution. And that's great. And for those, I would say, like, we have a lot of free stuff on our website. Go to that. But if you really want to master the game, that's when you would engage with us, engage with me and say, how do I start to set this up? So it's not, so now you're looking at your investing entity or your development entity as a business, right? And you're really starting to take those strategic steps to build that strong foundation.
Got it. So it doesn't really matter what you might be doing as an entrepreneur, but as long as you want to go into the world of real estate, you can, whether it's commercial or residential, you want to, invest money there. Those are good people to come to. And then you mentioned, like, people who are like the drive-by people. So in order to work with you, what is what is the expectation for length of time that people should be investing to be able to get these projects up and going?
Yeah. So the typical answer, right, is it depends. So there's three ways to engage with me, is whether it's hey, here it's, you do it yourself. So we actually have a real estate development academy, and we're in the process of making that evergreen. So if they want to sign up for it and go through all the modules, spreadsheets, I mean, I have development, and everything you need to do a development is in there. They could, do it yourself, if you will. And then we have it do it with you, which is where our coaching and consulting comes in play. And then we have do it for you, which is our developer for fee service. And so we outlined it to meet everybody where they're at and what they want to do and how engaged they want to be. And so really the time frame depends on where you're at in that process. Do you already have a vision, or like, I have an idea of what I want to do, I have the land, or I'm beginning from step one, but I know I want to do this. So everybody comes to us at different points. And so then it really decides of how much of your DNA do you want in the process. And I refer to the time, talent, and treasure triangle often. So at any point in time, we only have so much time in our life. We only have so much talent at this point, and only have so much treasure. So out of those, which option is going to be the best for you and where you want to go? And we just get real, like, if you want to sit and spin and the paralysis by analysis on this project, and what do I do? I could do this, I could do that. I could just, okay, well, let's sit down, look at the numbers. But if you still want to spiral, I mean, you're probably not going to engage with us for long, because you're still going to be in the same place in 6 months, even though we are pushing you, to send out that RFP, to send out that stuff, that information, to get those quotes. And we do reserve the right to release you, because we want to deal with people that want to take action. And I wouldn't be able to sit in that, because I want to help people. I mean, that's my passion, that's my calling. I believe that God has given me a certain skill set to help people and to move things forward and make that impact. And so those people that I want to spin, that's why I say, go check out the free stuff on the website. Check out the snippets. And again, I call them drive-by, because you should not base your foundation off of a soundbite, right? And that's what you're getting when you're spinning. You're asking every single person for equity into your head and into your business. And then everybody else has control of it but you.
Right, right. Now, Katie, what is one of your favorite stories?
Oh, well, I love my bakery story, my Trefsker's bakery story, where we renovated an 1893 building, and we put a bakery in there that was established as a German family-owned bakery since 1861. And so they came to us and they say, we have tight margins, we want to expand, but we don't have the money. We don't really know what we're doing. Like, how do we step into this? And so we work with people where they're at. And we put a plan in place, and we went into this building, and we gave them 3 times the space for 1.5 times the cost for their business. But yet the building was 6 times their space. So we added an event center. They opened another business, which was right on par with their skill set. So now they're having revenue from that, which is booked out 2 years in advance.
Wow.
And then we put other tenants in other parts of the building just to have that residual income. So again, looking at that time, talent, and treasure triangle, looking at what do we have to work with, all of that was to say, like, okay, we want this building, we want this space, this is how much it's going to cost. And I'll get to the cost structure in a second, but we don't have the business to expand into that yet. And so we started to capital stack properly, as well as the progress too. So talk about the capital stack. When you say we're tight on margins, we don't have enough for the down payment, we went to work on building a 8-layer financial stack for that project. And so it was a $5.5 million project with only $1.8 million of bank debt. And so everything else we put into that stack was incentives that were not putting an additional financial burden of like an interest payment or something like that on the building. And our investors received 353% return in 4 years with how we structured it.
Wow. That is a great story.
Yeah. And the last bit on that is our bakery owners went in with investing $50,000 for 82%. And when we refinanced, they got 100% back with no additional money in.
Wow. That is great. So they're running their bakery, plus they've got all the other parts of their building that they're running.
Yeah.
Different things.
All the other things. Yeah. So that's where I love that. And I mean, like the other one is the corner gas station lot. Like, we all have those vacant corner gas stations in our downtown. And we went to work for a village came to us. It was actually right after the bakery project. And they said, could you help us with this corner? Like, we really want to get this owner to sell, but he wants like 3 times the cost because everything around it had been developed. So he's like a last man standing. I want my payout. Well, we structured it in a way that allowed him to not take on as much as not take on the capital gains tax that he would realize from a high sale price. The city wins because they didn't put anything out of their general obligation. And then our client came in and obtained the land for 0 money out of their pocket. And then they received 1.8 million in eligible expense reimbursement for that project to do it.
That is fantastic. What a great story.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing
That's the fun.
Yeah. That I always like to talk about is preparation, right? Because you have to prepare in order to go into negotiations. So can you just talk a little bit about like what kind, how in depth, it's just so people understand the amount of preparation that one has to do before you even negotiate this?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I look at it as like a big funnel of like, what is everything I have to work with in terms of telling that story, in terms of going into the numbers, where the property's at, are there any incentives? So it's all like a whiteboard in my mind of like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then as we start to work either on our developments or our clients' developments, it's, does this fit? Is this in alignment? Is this what we're doing anyway and would help? Or is this off, off the path and we're not really going to use it? And then those start to really craft that. And then it's going into what's the story we can tell that nobody can punch a hole in this story with the numbers, right? Like if I was to go into the bank with the bakery's projections and say, they're going to 6X next year. And they're going to say, well, tell me how, right? But we went in and said, we're going to take, 3 times the space. We're reducing our cost of goods by 27% by having different distributors and ordering from different people. So now we're already reducing by 27%. We're like, okay. And then saying like, by expanding this area, by offering these different types of offerings, we're easily able to get to say, 50% increase on sales, but we're only going to show you 30 because we want to be conservative. And you go into those, like with the banker, they're like, okay, so I have a safety net of 20% here already. And I easily see how you do it. And so you see how you start to step into those stories. So to me, it's knowing the numbers. And that's where the preparation comes in. What's the story behind the numbers? What are we going to do? What do we need to make work in these structures? Otherwise, you're kind of flying blind. And I think it also helps prepare you when you get pushback, right? Because nobody ever says yes 100% of the time. If you do find them, call me, give me a number. But and then you can speak to it, right? So I usually tell my business owners, like, and this resonates with women more than men, but like, we're gonna have the bathing suit conversation. We're gonna bear it all. Like, I need to know everything we're talking about, like the good, the bad, the ugly. Let's put it all out there, because then I know where you're at. I know how we can like take that next step and step into it. And it's a constant learning as well, which is also another form of preparation, right? Is constantly learning how other people do deals. And I love that. I love when people are like, oh, I did this amazing. I'm like, tell me about it. I'm here for all of it, right? Like, I want everything.
Yeah, and there's lots of psychology involved too, right? When you're negotiating with people, and a lot of times people mistake the fact that just because you're doing business, that there isn't a lot of psychology or emotion. And I'm like, oh no, it is there, but it is just hidden.
Oh yeah.
Right. And the higher stakes it is, the more that people are hiding it and the more anxious and emotional they're feeling. It just doesn't look like it because they're showing up and they have their masks on and they're like,
Yep.
okay, it's a business deal. But underneath it all, they're like, oh my gosh, right? You're
Yes.
laughing.
Yes.
So I'm assuming you experience that with your clients.
Oh yeah. Oh, there is. I wish I would have paid better attention in my psychology 101 class in college, because it's a lot of mental, I would say traversing, like going through those, like, I can't do this. Oh my gosh. And I hate the phrase imposter syndrome, because we all are, it's building your capacity. It's not imposter syndrome. It's you're expanding your capacity. You're going to come back. You're going to expand again. You're going to come back.
Yep.
So just have the team that when you expand, they're there for you, right? They're guiding you through that process. And one of the things, especially on the psychology part, that I think we don't give enough credit to is all the way through school, we have teachers, right? We have somebody holding our hand, teaching us concepts. And then we get out into the world and we're like, okay, here you go. Go have fun, figure it out. Right. And you're like, wait a second, like it's a swipe. And we need to lean into being hungry to feed ourselves and that knowledge we need, and to ask the questions and become curious, become, that 5-year-old kid that's like, why? We need to get back to that, because that is when I feel the magic happens, when we challenge status quo. We think, why can't we do this? Or if we can't do that, what about this? Right.
Yep. No, I love that. So, I love the fact that you talked about imposter syndrome, because in my mediations, a lot of the times, my job is to reframe things for people. I
Yes.
reframe it, and all of a sudden it looks completely different. It's like you're looking in this direction, and I'm like, no, why don't you come over here and look at it from this direction? And it suddenly looks different, right?
Yeah.
And so when you're talking about the imposter syndrome, I think what I don't like about that is that it is framing it for everyone.
Yes.
Everyone that's out there, there's a phrase, imposter syndrome, that is framing everyone to feel like whatever that discomfort you're feeling is that you're feeling like an imposter. When in fact, what I heard you say is, let's just reframe it and call it like our growth like area, right?
Yeah.
Because when you're growing, it feels a little bit uncomfortable. It feels a little bit like, right? But that's the growth phase.
Yes.
Just like when you're in math class and learning new math, you're like, what? Proofs? I don't even know what we're doing. But then eventually you get it, and eventually you become an expert at it, right?
Yes.
So I love the idea of just reframing it to say, you're in growth mode. It's not, and so you take that same feeling and you just put a different label on it.
Yeah.
And suddenly it's easier to embrace because you're like, oh, this is really uncomfortable, but I'm in my growth mode versus I better like slow down because I'm in imposter syndrome mode and like I don't think I can do it, because then that already is pushing, that label is putting doubt into your mind.
Yes.
Whereas if you say, let's put a different label on it, let's just call it your growth mode. Now that hunger that you're talking about, like I'm hungry for knowledge, I'm hungry, right? It becomes okay to feel uncomfortable because now we're saying this is what it feels like when you're learning, when something's new, right? So I love that because that's part of negotiating, is to use the right framing so that you can move forward, right?
Yeah, I love
in
it.
a lot of the mediations that I do, I want to constantly say, hey, look, Katie, I'm sure we're going to get to an agreement. I'm sure we're going to get to an agreement. And you drop these little like hints throughout, because what I'm doing is actually I'm training your brain to say, okay, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And you make these micro decisions. So in the same sense that when you're working with entrepreneurs who are like, I think if you reframe everything, they can go faster.
Yeah.
Am I right?
100%. And it is those, like you said, micro steps. I always say it's like, we're going to take those micro steps to get to the big goal, right? We're going to do the reps. So my kids play hockey. So, and we have this stat. It's like, it takes over 3,000 reps to get a skill. And then it takes over 30,000 to master it. And so when they get frustrated, I'm like, you're just not there yet. You don't have enough reps. Like, don't talk to me about not getting it. Do the reps. Do 3,000, then come in and talk. We have some tough love in our family, but I think about that, and we get so comfortable with those labels that like, oh, it justifies me, and it's like, no, it's holding you back.
Yes, exactly.
It's holding you back. And when you were talking about like being fed and stuff, I think about once people say like, oh, I have imposter syndrome. It's like a binky, like, like for a baby, and you like shove it in your mouth and you're like, oh, I'm so calm. I'm so, relaxed. And I say this because everybody can picture that screaming baby that gets like, and so now you have this binky in there. But guess what? When you have the binky in, you can't be fed. You can't communicate what you want. You can't tell people where I want to go, right? So just take the damn binky out and like, let's go. Let's reframe. Let's get fed.
Love it. I love it. I love it. So one final question. So if, I'm going to guess that there are listeners who are like, oh, this sounds really interesting, and I'm interested in maybe working with Katie. Yeah. So what are the types of people, like, if they're starting to feel a little calling to say, oh, I want to dabble in real estate, like, what do you want to say to those people? Like, who are the people that should be coming over to you? Even if someone's like, oh, I'm a little bit afraid, maybe I do have imposter syndrome, or maybe growth mode, like, who are these people that are starting to feel like called to work with you or do that kind of work? And like, what do you want to tell them?
Yeah. I'll be gentle. No. That's usually the first thing is like, I'm like, okay, calm down. We're not going to like jump off the building right now. But really I would want you to have discernment first. Like, it's like we were talking about, of like letting everybody speak into your world. Right. And the first step to engage is really book a call with our team and see if we're a good fit for you, see where you're at in the process. Like I said, we have 3 different ways to meet people where they're at. So you don't have to jump into the deep end. If you are half pregnant with a building right now and you're like, Katie, I'm drowning, I need you, then again, our team is gonna talk you through and say, okay, this is an option for you. And really, the one thing I love about what I get to do is I get to become a chameleon and get into the mindset of our clients and then help them build them that confidence to do what they want to do and step into it, where they own all those decisions. So for the people who have started the process, and maybe the typical one I hear is they hired an architect and they're not listening to them, right? I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to say, where's your dream? Like our distillery owner, she worked with an architect and they weren't listening to what she wanted. We had one call and she's like, you hear me? I'm like, I hear you. I see you. Let's get to work. Right. And that's what I want people to understand is if you feel like you're hitting your head against the wall, you may have the wrong team member. And so seek that clarity, seek the discernment of what do you really want to do, and then take action. Don't wait, just take action. Don't think it.
I love that. Yeah, when I first bought my house, at this point it's maybe like 9 years ago.
Yeah.
It's very similar in that I was like, oh, I don't want to call anybody because like, I'm like not ready. But what was interesting is that when I made the call to the mortgage broker, it was an informational call. So I got information that I did not previously have. Yeah. And so I'm presuming that these calls with you are the same, where they're going to get a bunch of information that is going to inform them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can do it. I didn't realize I could do it, but I could do it. Right. And so subsequently, after making that call, everything sort of fell into place and I own my home now. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think it's the same thing, like just basically not being afraid to reach out, call you just to get information. And all of a sudden the plan starts to fall in place.
Yes. Yes. Right? And that's the bathing suit conversation, right? It's like, we're just going to bear it all. You're not going to shock me. I mean, I would challenge you if you want, but it's asking questions, seeking to understand, right? Because think of ourselves as a kid. If you want to level up, if you want to get hungry, right, you're going to ask, you're going to seek in those questions. And those people I find that have been there, done that, and that's in that seeking and discerning. Don't ask for help from somebody who hasn't done what you want to do. Big thing. I see that all the time. Well, they said they know. Okay, show me where they've done it, Right. You can look on our websites. We take usually the hardest projects and most complex. And I like that because not everybody can do it. And it's fun and it's transformational. And that fills me. When I can transform a community and lift, that community up, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning. So
fantastic. If people want to reach out to you or they want to connect with you, Katie, what is the best way?
The best way is to go to our website, katiekim.com, and you'll see resources there. You can join our boot camp. I was about to mention that over there. That's a great way to get in and say, am I right for this? It's, we do 2 and 3 hour boot camps, and it's just an intro to get your head straight and where's my path? What do I want to lean into? So that's a great first option. But as I mentioned before, the best option is book a call with our team and just see if it's a good fit for you.
Have the bathing suit call.
Have the bathing suit call. That's what we'll rename it, Alice.
I love it. Thank you so much, Katie, for being here. Listeners, we'll drop all of Katie's information in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Katie and figure out how to connect with her, all that information will be there. So thanks so much, Katie. And I learned a lot from you today. So that was fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you, Alice. It's been a pleasure.